Okay, stop everything. We need to talk about what's about to go down in Salem. And I'm not exaggerating when I say this might be one of the most catastrophic financial implosions we've seen on days of our lives in years. Xander Kiriakis just made a move that could destroy everything. Seriously. $5 million gone, and not just gone rerouted into what might be the shadiest corner of Titan's operation. This isn't some soapy love triangle drama we can brush off in 2 weeks. This is generational wealth evaporating. This is the Kiriakis name about to be dragged through mud so thick that even their connections might not save them. But here's where it gets really interesting. Because this isn't just about Xander's desperation. This is about watching an entire empire collapse under the weight of its own corruption. And honestly, I think we're watching a Greek tragedy unfold in real time. So let's break this down. Let's talk about why Xander just made what might be the worst financial decision in Salem history. What it means for the people he loves. And where I think this story is actually heading. Because, trust me, it's darker than you think. 1. The setup. Why Xander became desperate and why we saw this coming. Remember when Xander was actually trying to be legitimate? I mean, not that long ago. This guy was legitimately working to make Titan a real company. But then Johnny DiMera, and I'm going to get into my feelings about Johnny in a second. Johnny decided he didn't want Kate's deal. That's when everything spiraled. So, Johnny had a choice. Kate Roberts Brady laid out a deal that could have solved Titan's problems cleanly, could have given them breathing room, could have actually saved the company without turning it into a criminal enterprise. But Johnny said no. And I'm not here to completely blame the kid, because Kate's propositions have historically come with strings attached. But sometimes you take the deal that keeps your family from losing everything. That rejection, that's the domino. That's the moment Xander realized he was on a sinking ship. And suddenly, legitimate options didn't seem so appealing anymore. Now, Xander isn't stupid. He's desperate. But he's not stupid. So he does what he thinks is clever. He moves $5 million from what we're supposed to believe is questionable money into channels that look more legal. Money laundering 101, right? Hide the dirty money under a veneer of legitimacy. But here's what Xander doesn't account for, because guys like Xander never do, is that covering tracks in the digital age is nearly impossible. These aren't the days where cash moves and nobody notices. There are transactions, there are patterns, there are digital footprints that scream we're hiding something to anyone who knows how to look. And you know who's going to look. The people who need to save themselves, to the emotional core Gabby's guilt and the relationship that can't save them. Now, let's shift focus, because there's something really painful happening beneath all this financial chaos. And it involves Gabi Hernandez. And honestly, Gabi's been haunting me all week because her guilt in this situation is so justified. Gabi helped Tony DiMera sabotage the Titangent DiMera merger. She made a choice, probably for reasons that seemed good at the time, that directly contributed to Titan's financial destruction. And that's not a small thing. That's not just, oops, I made a mistake. I participated in the dismantling of a major corporation. So now, while Gabi and Philip are moving into their cute little apartment together, and yes, Philip's trying to romance her out of her guilt with a romantic new living situation, which is both sweet and completely insufficient. Gabi is carrying this weight, this knowledge that her actions helped create the crisis that's now destroying her boyfriend's family. Here's what I find fascinating, and honestly, kind of tragic. Philip's trying to build something beautiful with Gabi. He's stepping up, finding them a place, deepening their relationship. But Gabi knows the foundation is built on her betrayal. And that's the kind of secret that festers relationships built on hidden guilt don't stand still, they rot. And I'm predicting that as Xander's scheme unravels, and as the full extent of the financial disaster becomes clear, Gabby's going to have to come clean. Either she volunteers the truth, or someone else reveals it. And when that happens, this relationship, this beautiful thing Philip's trying to build, it's going to implode. Because you can't build a stable future on quicksand. And that's what Gabi's guilt is. Quicksand 3. The history lesson, why. This feels like a Kiriakis legacy collapse. Okay, I need to take you back. If you've been watching Days for more than 5 years, you know that Titan and the Kiriakis fortune aren't just money. They're legacy. They're power. They're the foundation of like 4 or 5 major storylines in Salem's entire history. Victor built an empire. It wasn't clean. Victor Kiriakis never did anything cleanly in his life, but it was built on loyalty, on cunning, on understanding how to play the game at the highest levels, and for years. Titan weathered every storm. Dimira attacks, personal tragedias, leadership changes. The Kiriakis name survived because that empire had depth. It had resources, but that was when Victor was running things. Victor understood power because he was power. Now we've got Xander trying to play Victor's game without Victor's ruthlessness or wisdom. And I don't say that as criticism, I say that as observation. Xander's heart is in the right place. He wants to protect his family. He wants to maintain their status, but he's using tactics that would only work if you have the connections and the resources to back them up. And Xander, he's standing in the wreckage of an empire wondering where the foundation went. This feels like a callback to other massive Kiriakis upheavals. Remember when the family lost everything before. Remember the threats to the mansion. Remember when this family's safety net could only stretch so far. Here's my prediction. Maggie's going to lose the mansion. Maybe not immediately, but it's coming. And losing that physical anchor, that place that's been the Kiriakis home for generations, that's going to shatter something psychological in this family. The mansion isn't just a house in Salem. It's a symbol. It says the Kiriakis family still has power. And when they lose it, they lose their psychological shield for Xander's psychology. The difference between desperation and ambition. You want to know what I actually respect about Xander? Though, because I have to be honest, I do respect something about him in all of this. And I'm not saying that because I think what he's doing is right. I'm saying it because I understand the psychology, Xander says a problem, and his instinct is to solve it. Not to panic, not to run, not even to ask for help. Really, he sees a crisis, and he thinks, I can handle this. I can move pieces around. I can make this work. That's not stupidity. That's actually the response of someone who's had to be independent, who's had to figure out solutions without a safety net. And honestly, in different circumstances, that quality is admirable. But desperation is a corruption of ambition. When you're desperate, you start making moves that logic wouldn't support. You start thinking short term when you should be thinking long term. You start hiding instead of revealing, and that's where Xander is right now. He's crossed the line from let me solve this problem into let me hide this problem. And those are two very different things. The tragedy of Xander is that he probably could have solved this legitimately. He could have come clean, accepted some losses, rebuilt. But instead, he chose the criminal route, and now he's trapped. Because once you start moving illegal money around, once you start hiding financial crimes, you can't just stop. You have to keep going. You have to cover it up. You have to pray. Nobody looks too close. And somebody's always going to look. 5, the prediction where this story actually goes and why I'm genuinely unsettled. All right? Let's talk about where I think this is heading. And I want to be clear, this is speculation based on how Days structures these stories on character psychology. And on the way, soap operas build toward their catastrophes. Xander's plan is going to be exposed. Maybe Kate finds the discrepancies. Maybe Johnny gets curious about why his company's finances look weird. Maybe, and this is my favorite scenario, maybe Gabi breaks and confesses everything out of guilt. And in her confession, she accidentally exposes Xander's scheme. But here's the thing. Exposure is just the beginning. Because once this is public, Xander doesn't just face legal consequences. He faces his family, and that's worse. Maggie's going to be devastated. Not just angry, devastated, because Xander is the son she raised, the person she trusted to carry the family legacy, and he's destroyed it in a moment of panic. That relationship might not recover. Philip is going to be torn between his family and Gabi. Because once this all comes out, once Gabi's role in the merger sabotage becomes connected to Xander's financial crimes in people's minds, Philip's going to have to choose. And those choices destroy relationships in Salem, and Kate's going to realize that her deal was never going to happen because Johnny rejected it. So now she's watching the company collapse anyway, and she's stuck with whatever fallout happens. The Kiriakis